Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Soundjack tutorial in the context of the SANE project, the Spatial Audio Network Europe. And this video should explain you the details and the basics of how to use Soundjack in the context of the Spatial Audio Network Europe project. And first of all, after you downloaded the application and you launched it, you can see a screen with a login button on the top. And in case you have registered before, you just type in your credentials. And if everything works out successfully, you are basically logged in. And after you are logged in, you have an additional tab on top of the window that is called stage, and the stage is the place where the music happens basically. And we click on stage, and once we have done so, we will see that apart from the chat on the right, we have the main section here in the middle, and the main section consists of the local Soundjack parameters here, and on the right we have a user list. With regards to the numerous parameters on the left, I don't want to go too much into detail. Simply realize that we can go from auto, which has a reduced set of parameters, to extended, which has more parameters that can be manually adjusted by the user, to expert, which gives you the whole set of parameters. And in context with spatial audio processing, we must have the expert settings, because these are not trivial and not really familiar to most of the users. So we basically deal with an expert settings if we want to process binaural or spatial audio in general. And that being said, I would like to come to the first use case where we deal with the target of applying spatial audio on the receiving end, so the receiver-based spatial audio. And if we did that, we can use any kind of interface. Let's, for example, use the Scarlett interface here. And we also think about having the sound reproduce on the Scarlett itself, which works like this. And on the right, we have the user list, and I am now presenting this tool alone, so I don't have a remote person I'm monitoring, I'm showing that with. Because it's actually quite convenient to use our local host entry. The local host entry is basically an entry which allows us to send data to ourselves, so we can basically behave like a sender and a receiver at the same time. And if we hit the on button, it says this is your own machine, localhost, connect to test, and then it does so. I'm reducing the levels now, and you can see here that now there is the receiver on the end, but this is myself, so I can basically hear my own sound. And with regards to these settings here, we have an impact on the latency settings, and I don't want to dig too much into that. This tutorial is only supposed to show the spatial audio functionality. And now I am sending, as we see here, capture send channels, one channel captured by the input Scarlett interface. And this is being received here on the user list by the local host receiver. And you can see here the level peaking of the voice I'm sending into this. And if I now want to place this received mono channel in a 3D spatial field, I can click here from 1D to 3D, and then the original pan, left-right pan, is replaced by a spatial audio pan. And now I can have my mono source here being placed within the 360 sound field. So this is basically the positive elevation and we have the azimut this way. And if I click here, we will end up having negative elevation and basically the lower side of the sphere. So this is the most simple way of using spatial audio within Soundjack. The more complex way of using it is referred to the sender-based spatial audio. And the sender-based spatial audio only works with spherical microphones like the Sennheiser Ambeo, for example, or the EM64 Eigenmic whatsoever, but it only works if our input sound card does support numerous channels. For example, I'm using now the black hole 16 channels input driver, which gives me the opportunity to adjust here more than 1 or 2 channels. So I'm using 16 channels that can be transmitted. And you can see immediately here that it has moved to 16. So the receiver displaced that 16 channels are being received. But at the moment, I only do that in a linear way. So there is no spatial audio involved at the moment. But what I can do is, having 16 input channels available, I can use a specific encoding here. If I go on no encoding, it does what it currently does. It transmits the input channels in a linear fashion, 16 channels. I can, for example, well, that's not related to spatial audio, I can mix them down to one mono channel. And then we can see here, this turns to orange and there is only one channel being received. So this is one sort of mono encoding I'm doing here. But apart from the mono encoding, I can send a 3D 2-channel mix, and that refers to binaural audio. So if I choose this one, then all of the existing input channels are being rendered to a 2-channel binaural stream that is sent across the network. And then we can see here also in orange and 2. That means that I am now receiving an already decoded binaural mix. So on the receiving end, if I wear headphones, I can now perceive a binaural scene that is generated by the sender. We can as well pick other options. So that is Ambisonic's first order that would send 4 channels, for example, captured by a Sennheiser Ambeo microphone. If we had more capsules, we could transmit second, third, fourth, fifth, or even 6th order, and then have a pre-rendered speaker array-based ambisonic mix for the receiver. And the receiver can then immediately, depending on the adjustment of how many speakers he or she has, map that on top of the existing speaker array infrastructure. So basically what we need is the adjustment of the proper sound interface here, input and output, depending on the currently available input and output devices. Then we have to adjust the proper input channels. So how many input channels do we have according to either a mono channel, a normal sound card, or a spherical microphone. Then we must decide what is the encoding we want to use. So no encoding at all, mono mix or ambisonic mix to be sent, binaural ambisonic mix to be sent, or first order ambisonic speaker array mix, second order ambisonics speaker array mix, and so forth. And on the receiving end, that's the final parameter to be adjusted. How many speakers do we have that allow the ambisonics speaker array reproduction, or if it is only playback channels 2, it would be binaural. And depending on these settings, we can apply any desired spatial audio configuration within Soundjack.